any guests that we have joining us today. For those that might be first timers, as you probably know, Microsoft regularly rolls out new features, and to try to help you maximize your investment in this platform, we hold about 10 of these webinars a year where we show you the new features, and sometimes we're diving deeper into existing features. Today, actually, we've got 5 or 6 new features that just released, and you're going to hear some cool topics on some easy branding things that users can do. You're going to hear I think is one of the slickest features, being able to compare multiple files with Copilot. If you're trying to clean house, do some spring cleaning, migrations, those kind of things, you're going to see a real cool demonstration there. And one other one you're going to see is new features in MS List forms. Dylan's going to show you some of that, and we're actually going to give you an opportunity to try that firsthand. After this meeting, later today or tomorrow, you'll get an email with a link to one of those forms and let you suggest new topics that we can cover from that 365 platform, SharePoint, Teams, Stream Planner, for future webinars. So we look forward to your input there, and you'll get some hands-on with how that some of those list forms actually work. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Hayden. Welcome, everybody, and we've got a jam-packed session for you.
That's right. We do have a jam-packed session. Thank you so much, Michael. Today is one of those amazing webinar days where every topic is actually a new feature. So we do have a lot to cover. First on our agenda, we have Copilot's brand new ability to compare up to 5 different files, which is a new feature that allows you to track differences between documents, such as version history, or even some other nuanced differences, maybe between 2 different policies. We're then discussing the new complex fields and conditional branching capabilities in Microsoft Forms. So Microsoft List Forms now support complex fields such as lookups and people fields, but they also now support conditional branching, meaning depending on the value of one field, it can then show you additional fields relating to that selection that you chose. Dylan will be covering both these topics and more as we kick off. Following Dylan today, we have the flexible SharePoint page layout sections, which is a really cool, neat branding design feature that SharePoint just rolled out, which allows visually appealing content spaces without the strict column structure that we're kind of used to up to this point. Additionally, we'll cover the new SharePoint Accessibility Assistant feature. This feature will help content creators ensure that their SharePoint pages meet accessibility standards for various reasons. Katie will be able to share more on that following Dylan today. We then will end today's webinar with a brand new way to filter your search results with messages. This feature originally was only available in the Microsoft Teams platform, but Microsoft has now added the feature to be able to search messages in all of O365. So Leona will catch us up to speed with all of that feature at the end. Again, a lot of ground to cover. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump on into the first topic of Copilot's new feature to compare up to 5 files, taught by Dylan. Over to you, Dylan.
Hey everyone, yeah. So starting out here in this presentation, yeah, we're going to cover that feature, the Copilot, and being able to compare up to 5 files. So basically, this is a feature that's actually built in to people that have the license. It's that per user license, the 365 Copilot for Business. And some people may find this particularly useful that are working a lot with their documents, maybe for comparing different drafted versions of a document, or if you have a couple copies of a document and just being able to quickly compare, see if what the similarities and differences are between them, or if you have things like reports, contracts, policies, as there's differences, you'll be able to compare them, and then also have that ability to even ask additional questions about it, like maybe compare the difference in the price or the hours or this or that. You could ask those additional questions, and it already has the context of the files you're comparing. And I'll of course show an example of that. Now, for people that are wondering where they can find it as well, primarily you're going to use this in your OneDrive app currently. I may briefly at the end though show you a way that without using OneDrive, how you could quickly do it just from the chat. But the specific feature that makes it really nice and easy is available right now in OneDrive. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pull up onto my screen. I'll just show you two ways to do this through OneDrive. One is just through the normal browser. So if you have your site open, specifically, just searching for OneDrive in my apps, I could open OneDrive in the browser. Now also, if you have like your little 365 app, like if you're using Copilot Chat, you may see that as a tab here as well. So either way that you would want to get to Copilot, or from Copilot, or from just from the browser hitting OneDrive. So, but anyways, it's going to be the same experience once you're in the OneDrive app area. So what I'm going to do from here is I actually want to compare two documents specifically. I have two test documents in my site. So under quick access here, I'm just going to my personal site. There's different ways you can navigate here. Here you have all the different groups that group sites that you're members of. And what you might find in OneDrive is, stuff that's on your computer that's connected to OneDrive, or from SharePoint sites. It may also be stuff from, meetings, Outlook attachments, whatever that, gets picked up by your OneDrive app. But so specifically what I'm going to do here is I've got two, they're just kind of dummy data project contracts that I've generated here. So what I'll do is you'll see I have the ability to select the documents. When I select more than one, it's going to give me that ability to compare. So I've got these two selected, and up here under Copilot, you'll see you have a few of those different things that you can do to summarize, and then now this compare files as well as ask a question. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit compare files, and I'm only going to do two for now, but you could do up to 5. So what that does is it starts to generate a table, just comparing the similarities and differences, looking for the pattern between the two documents, and making a little table. So, in this one, it's showing an estimated hours, 400, and then 600 in the other. So I think particularly where this is useful is either where you're maybe using something like a template for a document, or different drafts of a document, something of that nature, maybe a report that, it's following the same sort of columns or structure or whatever it is. You could try other type of things too, documents that don't follow the same structure. It'll try to make a relation between them. But definitely more useful when there's a similar pattern to the documents, where I can see the name of the different projects or contracts, and it's trying to basically show that, so I can say, okay, yeah, this is, I can understand which one is which, and then what I can do from here as well. Let's say I want to see ask it a question about these two documents that I'm comparing. It'll pull it up in the little chat window. And then I could say, just something like, what is the difference in price? Just ask it a simple question for now, but I could keep asking it additional things. And then what it'll do is it'll go ahead and tell me, the difference in the price between those two contracts, basically. And what it'll do as well is anytime it's actually making a reference specifically to the document, it'll leave a little number notation next to it, and show you where in that document, where you can actually click and open it and see where it's getting that number from. So you should be able to tell if it's just giving you a general generative answer, or it's actually giving you something specifically from the document. And when it's pulling something from the document, you should get a little notation there. So this could be, pretty useful depending on, if you're someone that's working on certain type of documents, maybe version documents or policies, reports, whatever, different things of that nature, contracts, quickly compare them. Or if you're doing something like maybe a cleanup or whatever, and you want to see, well, are these documents just copies of each other, or are there differences between them? And just to show you as well, I only selected 2 here. This won't be particularly useful because these other documents don't really have, they're not really similarly structured. They don't really have much in them. But just to show you, I could select up to 5 here. So if I select 5 documents and then I do the Copilot, you'll see it'll at least try to make a comparison table. It just may give me, for some of the fields, it may say it's non-applicable or something of that nature, but it'll try to make comparisons for you and just make as many comparisons as it can. You can see it does a non-applicable for some of these, where 2 documents have these similarities. and then it'll say not applicable for the others. But it'll try at least to do that, and even show me, the author, etc. It'll try to do some comparisons there. But you'll see as soon as I select more, those features aren't available. So it's really just up to 5 currently. And you could use, also the summarize or whatever, or ask questions, things of that nature. Now, if you specifically don't want to navigate through OneDrive, I will say there's just kind of a quick thing that I'll note, is that, since Copilot is just a generative model at the end of the day, that's a particular feature that they've developed that gives you a particular output. But just something to be aware of as well is you can just kind of be creative with it. And if you wanted to say add content in your Copilot chat, and I went to my files, I could just try selecting these 2 files in here and ask them to compare these files, or ask it, to maybe make a table or whatever. But it's not going to be exactly the same. But just to be aware that, you can be creative, and what they're basically doing as they develop features is define what's useful for people. What are people trying to do? And so, I could try to do this, and it'll show me the key, try to give me key differences and or similarities. So just something to be aware of as a kind of a workaround there. If instead of navigating through OneDrive. Now, I imagine eventually they'll probably implement this in other areas. There's also other things you could do, like using the Copilot agents, which we'll probably cover in a future video or future presentation, but just a kind of a backup option here as well. But I would say using that Copilot compare feature is pretty useful. I would just check, something you can easily check out in OneDrive, and see if you find that to be useful for some of your documents. But with that in mind, I'll cover the first topic of that Copilot compare feature. I'll go ahead and switch my slide to my next topic here. Yeah, so in this particular presentation, just moving on, this is the MS List forms feature that's been available for a while, but they've now implemented some new features to the Microsoft List forms that make this a lot more viable, because Microsoft Forms is a really kind of simple to use feature that they implemented into lists. It just didn't have a lot of the complex fields like lookups and person fields, a lot of things that people would potentially want to use, that kind of made it something that they couldn't use yet. They're interested in using it. This ability to just easily create this branded form with your logo. You don't have to learn any expressions or JSON schemas or anything. You're able to just use sort of that little out of the box settings and make a nice looking form that anyone could access when they clicked the link to the form, and it would submit to the list. But it just didn't have these additional fields. And then also something you can do now is the branching functionality, which I'll show, which gives you the ability to sort of hide and show fields and have different parts of the form show as they select certain values in the form. So they're definitely making it more viable and sort of blending some of the features you would see in the Microsoft Forms app, which is a separate app. It doesn't submit to SharePoint list. That's lives somewhere else. So they're kind of blending some of those features into Microsoft lists and bringing some of those other features over. So I think it's definitely I think there's probably more people now that'll consider using this feature, which I'll show. And then, yeah, just a little note here. You could use this on your existing list that you have in SharePoint, as well as, for creating new lists. So you don't have to do anything different, as long as, which most people should be now in the updated Microsoft lists. They made some kind of updates to lists. If you have those updates, then, this feature should be available, and I'll show you where you can find it. So I'll go ahead and pull open on the screen here a list. So let me drag this on. So I've got a list pulled up. Now it could be any list. Basically what I'm looking for is this forms feature. So up here in the little command bar at the top, if I click forms, this is that new feature where you could have different forms on this list. It all submits data to the list, but you don't actually have to send users to the list to fill it out. You can just give them a link to this form, and they never actually have to see or touch the list, or you don't even technically, the idea is that you wouldn't even have to do permissions if you didn't want, depending on the use of this. This might be for something like a sign up or a survey or whatever it is. You could have different forms that all submit to the list. And people will only have access to fill out the form, but not to see the other records. So it could be useful for things like feedback or surveys, things of that nature. What I'll do is I'll open up my example form I have here already, one of them anyways. And you'll see here, when I fill it out, it's got sort of the little branding that I can do with the logo, the name, some description here. And then I'll just show some of the different fields we have available now. So I've got my attachments in here, the add attachments. I've got a employee field, which is actually a person field. So it looks for people that actually have accounts. And we also have a lookup field to a list. So those are drop down values that are pulling in from a list. Then we just have a choice field, and then currency field, and then I'm going to show some branching down here. Now the one field that's seems to not be implemented yet, almost looks like they're going to, but I can't say for sure. I didn't see it in the roadmap, is the manage metadata field, but the other complex fields are here. And if I just hit add new field, I'll show you. So like a person field, hyperlink currency, most of them are here, images, lookup, location. I just don't have that. Attachments just don't have that managed metadata yet. But I would say that definitely gets you a lot further in terms of making it viable to use this, since it is so easy to use. Just being able to drag and drop. Also for the branching, you don't have to learn expressions or anything like that. It's just all done through the interface here. I could say add branching. I've already added branching. I could hit the add branching here. I could just switch over to the branch mode, and it just tells you, you select this value, where does it go? Does it just go to the next field, or do you end the form if they select this value, or do you jump to another area on the form? So you could kind of really get pretty granular with the branching. In mine, I just do a simple branching where I just select, if they say to sign up someone else is yes, then it's going to go to the additional employees, and once they fill out those additional employees, it ends the form. So I'll show this real quick as well. I've already hit the send form and copied a link. So just to do a little preview here. Let me do it on I added it to my little side navigation, which I was going to show. Let me see if it shows up. That's fine. I'll just copy the link. So just to show you how it works. If I go and edit the form, whenever my form is ready, I just hit copy link. Then I can just paste it somewhere. What I'll do is I'll just paste it in the browser for now. I've got my link to the form. So this is how the form looks, whatever background you selected, some of the things that you filled out at the top if you wanted to, as the little description and title and logo. And then I'll just to show the complex fields here. I fill out a user. I can add an attachment. I can do the lookup to a list, select the position, do the currency, and then here's to show the branching, where if I select no, nothing happens, but if I select yes, it opens this up. It could open up a bunch of fields as well. I just only have one in this example, and I could sign up somebody else. And then when I hit submit, it goes to a little thank you page, which I believe you can customize as well. So they never actually, what's nice, they never actually go to the list. So that's maybe one thing that's useful for it is, without having to do any sort of development or whatever, you just have a link that people click, they can fill it out, they get the thank you response, and then they never actually see the list or have to worry about them seeing other entries. They just only have access to fill out that form. But now you have the ability to do things like lookups and person fields and things like that, with the exclusion though of that managed metadata field. Now, the one feature though I think would be nice to see, which is in the Microsoft Forms, is the ability to pre-fill values in the form. So I haven't seen that available yet, but for sure I'll make sure to cover it if it is available here. But in a previous presentation, I did cover that for Microsoft Forms. I know this can be a little confusing, but it's basically these are SharePoint lists, and they've implemented this Forms feature, which is just similar to that Microsoft Forms app. But so I definitely think it's becoming a more viable solution to use in your lists. And just to be aware, these all these forms, they're still submitting to your list where you're creating your forms. You can have different forms all submitting to that list. They can all look different, have different fields on them. But yeah, all in that in your SharePoint list. So you, as in maybe the admin or the owner or whatever, you'd be able to see all your records here without ever having to show a user this list. They could just use this forms feature if it has the capability that you're looking for in it. And let me just see here. if we had anything else, I think that'll probably cover it. Oh yeah, I'll just show one quick thing as well. They have added in the ability when you go to create a new list. If you want to start out with forms, that's actually available here. So you could start with a list. It just shows these different type of layouts that you could start your list with. And when you go to create a new list, if you were starting from scratch, you could create a new list and start out with the form as if it's the primary thing you want, how you want to create your list. So if I wanted to say like a survey, just to show real quick, at the create, and it's just going to create the list and pull open one of those forms to start out. So I could actually just start creating all my fields directly from here, and go in and start creating without having to have my list set up first. So you could start out from scratch if you wanted to and just quickly get into it. And there's my lookup. And then I select the list that I want to pull in, whichever list that would be. You can make them the fields required. I can start setting up branching. And of course, some of these features have already been here, but you can, change backgrounds, things like that. But just to show you, there's two ways. You can go to your existing list. You could also just start from scratch and, hit the create a new list and choose forms to start out if you just want to, demo that feature specifically on a new list. But with that in mind, I think that'll cover my second topic there. And so I will hand it back over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dylan. Yeah, a lot of great features that we just covered. The first being the Copilot ability to spot key differences between documents. This would be a great quick audit tool without the need to email or Teams message another coworker. Maybe they get back to you in the next couple minutes. Maybe it takes a day or two. But it could be very beneficial if you have multiple documents, maybe with the same name, but just different revisions in the name, or maybe several people have created or edited the same document and stored it in different places, and trying to make sure you don't erase or clean up too much, but you do want to clean up. This will help the client, really reduce down to one singular document and merge the edits together, which is best practice for a singular source of truth for documents. So very cool key aspect there. You also have the Microsoft List Forms. In the past, you'd have to use Power Automation, a little Power Application for some of these features, maybe even a third-party form tool to be able to do certain things that we showed today. So this feature is really allowing the end user to create and generate easier and quicker forms and really be a master of your own content without having to really do a big dev build out. So very exciting features. Glad that they're rolling out. Okay, so now we are moving on to the next segment, which is taught by Katie. She is going to be teaching us today about the new flexible SharePoint page layout sections. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks, Aiden. Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to dive into one of the most anticipated additions to the SharePoint Creator updates, the flexible sections. Whether you're looking to create more dynamic, engaging content or streamline the layout of your page with greater control, this is going to give you the tools to do that. I'm usually often asked by clients to help make their SharePoint page look less SharePoint-y. And in the past, you were able to do that with a fair amount of coding, along with the ongoing maintenance that comes with that. But now with flexible sections, you're empowered to enhance the page designs and layouts without a single line of code. So whether you're aiming for a polished professional look or simply just want to reorganize your information in a more visually appealing way, this feature is going to allow you to do that. So let's take a look at how the new flexible sections work. So right here, I just have an average page using the old section options. So in the past, if you wanted to have a design where maybe you had a news web part that is taking up, the middle of the section, but you also wanted to put in maybe, other things alongside. You could see that it was doable, but if I wanted to keep that picture background full, it became pretty choppy. It became, trying to edit a background picture to try to line it up, and it was just a hot mess. So to use the flexible sections, you're going to put your page into edit. So right where you could add a normal section, you're going to see this new flexible option. So we'll go ahead and click that. We'll go and add the background that we wanted to use. And now we could start moving the web parts there. So you do have this little section handle, which does allow you to resize the background section. If you wanted to add the web parts, you can drag and drop, or if you didn't have it already on the page, you're going to come over to the side into the toolbox. And this is where you could find the web parts that you want to add. So if I wanted to add that news, I could go and type in the news and either click it, or you could drag and drop it into place. So once you have it, you could then choose the size of the web part that you want it to be. Some of the web parts, news, hero web parts, people cards, quick links, those are considered card-based web parts, and those can only be resized into 4 different options. And those sizing are what you've seen before on the page sections. Other web parts such as images or text web parts can really be sized any way that you want. So to make this look, we're going to just kind of put this back into the tiles here. And then to bring these, I am going to just drag and drop. So you could see once you add a web part, the section will automatically resize, so you don't have to worry about making sure there's enough space there. So we'll just move this, and you could see as I'm kind of lining it, you'll see these guidance lines that appear to kind of help you align it to where you want it to be. Once you let go, it's going to snap into the closest grid section there. So you can see if I kind of resize it, it'll just snap where it'll fit. So let's bring down the other ones. Put the text web part up here and the other editorial card. And so once you have everything on there, you're able to, arrange it any which way that you want. So once you have the design, you could go ahead and hit republish. And so you could see now we have that same layout that we had previously, but that picture in the background isn't all chopped up. So there are other benefits to this new flexible layout aside from having the consistent image background. I'm going to come over to this other page that uses the flexible website sections to show those other features. So I'm going to again put it into edit mode. So we did see, how to add the backgrounds, how to add the web parts, and how to resize them. So, once you kind of create what you want, you might find, oh no, I need to move everything over a little bit. And that could be kind of a pain to then have to take each element and redrag it exactly where you want. So there's this feature that's called grouping. So you're able to click into it. So you're going to click Control and then click the next web parts that you want to group. So I'll go ahead and click this whole section. And then down in this little drop down, you're going to see this option here, Group. You could also do it by hitting Control G. Once it's grouped, you're able to move this whole section as a whole without having to worry about redesigning that. When you group it, it is going to stay consistent across different editing sections. And it also has the added benefit of when you're in mobile, it's going to align all the elements accordingly and keep all the grouped items together. Another feature is the ability to overlap web parts. So this allows you to make a lot of different designs using different images or anything that you really want here. To overlap, it is just as easy as dragging it over a different web part that you want it to be. From there, you have the arrange items option again, and you could choose if you wanted to send it to the back or the front or align it any which way you want there. So a lot of possibilities now that require zero code, and you could actually make your SharePoint site look more like a website than a SharePoint site. So that's really exciting. Great. So now that we've talked about the flexible sections, we're going to go to the next topic, which is the accessibility assistant. So accessibility is a crucial aspect of creating inclusive, user-friendly sites, especially when you're considering standards like the ADA or WCAG. You're gonna want a lot, some assistance to, help make it accessible for everyone. This is gonna ensure you that your pages meet those accessibility standards by providing checks and some guidance on how to make the page more accessible. So let's take a look at how that feature is working. I'm going to come back over to this other page over here. So to get the accessibility assistant tool, you're going to put your page into edit. And along this toolbar, you're going to click this little icon. And that's the accessibility agent. So when you click it, it does a check, and it's going to run through everything on the page and see what's going on there. So right away, it's telling me that the image is missing an alt text. So I'm able to click into that. It's going to select that web part for me. And then from there, I can mark it as decorative or add that alternate text for you. Coming back to there, we now see that there's a little check mark because that issue has been fixed, and it's going to shift its focus to the next violation. So that is the text web part that's hard to read on a contrast. So I could select that, and it's going to, again, show what it's talking about there. So you can see it does give some options and guidance on how to fix this issue. So we could see, okay, maybe the white's not the best choice. So we'll go ahead, select that, and let's go ahead and make this text black. So we could say I fixed this, and now we get this little message saying everything's looking good. So one thing to note is if you do click I fix it, it means that the color contrast issue has been marked as resolved, and it won't be detected again during that editing session. If you click the ignore option, it's going to skip the detected issue and then go to the next and keep the previous state. So it doesn't necessarily know whether or not you fixed it or not. It will check it again and pick up on it if in the next editing section when you do that. So we saw that it does work for the images and then also the color contrast. Some other web parts that it's going to pick up on is any blank links, tables that don't have any headers, and then inconsistent page structure. So For example, if I have a header 3 at the top followed by a header 2, it's going to pick up on that. Currently, right now, it is only working on the text web parts, images, quick links, hero, and the banner web parts. But I do suspect that it's going to add in more options down the road. So between the flexible section layouts and the accessibility tool, you now have a lot of different options to not only make sure your page looks great, but that it looks great for everyone. And that's going to conclude my topics today. So back over to you, Hayden.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. Man, the new branding and design features that Microsoft has been rolling out, if you've been following along with our webinar for the last few months, you'll know that Microsoft's really just keeps pushing more and more branding and design features to make it more accessible to change and edit your pages. Thinking about the flexibility tool for a second, having that simple grid to know exactly where the web part's going to land, or being able to horizontally or vertically size each section to make sure it fits dynamically wherever you need to. Abilities for grouping, send backwards, send forwards. I mean, these are some pretty you'd think more basic features, but the power that you can have behind them to make each page feel and look and match, your company's culture and your company's standards is just top notch and well overdue. Excited to see these features. With the accessibility assistant, we work with a lot of clients with schools and governments. And they have requirements to meet certain compliance for accessibility. I know a lot of design and branding people, they do amazing work, and sometimes just having an assistant tool there to double check your work to make sure that everyone can enjoy the masterpiece you created goes a long way. So very excited for these new features. Thank you, Katie. It is now time to take a look at our last topic of the day, which is filter search results by messages, which will be Leona Lamont will be teaching us on. And so I will send it over to you, Leona.
Alrighty, welcome everyone. Yep, today we're going to be talking about the new search vertical for messages inside of Office 365. Microsoft Office 365 recently rolled out the new vertical by default, so all of your organizations should have this now be available to your users. We'll briefly cover how to enable or disable this feature. Like I said before, it will automatically be enabled, so we'll talk about how you can disable it / re-enable it if you need to. Also, this was previously only accessible kind of through multiple different applications. So this would be like using your search with inside of Outlook or using your search with inside of Microsoft Teams. Microsoft's now consolidating that into a new vertical inside of Office 365. So you don't need to go to 10 different apps to try to find content that you're looking for. Some of the terminology you're going to hear today is scope. Scope is going to determine where you're searching. I will kind of show an example of that in just a moment. Messages, these are going to be Teams chat or email messages. So again, either your Outlook mailbox and or your Teams chat, whether they be through meetings or direct checks with other users. And then verticals are going to be kind of predefined search queries. An example might be, again, messages or files or things as such where it says, I'm looking for a specific thing inside of my search. So we'll go ahead and start off by pulling up a site. So I'm on my webinar.com site, and let's say I was looking for the term webinar. And if I was to hit the enter button to my search box, we get taken to a search results page. Now, the vertical that I'm referencing right this second is only available at your organization scope. And again, scopes are going to be where you are searching. So as of right now, I'm on the webinar.com site. If you did have a hub, and this was associated to a hub, there would be an extra hyperlink between webinar comms and organization. Just be aware, our goal is to get to organization. So we say, hey, I'm looking for content anywhere inside of my Office 365 portal that I have access to. So in essence, we get pulled up to here. And now I go, I know that I was looking for something maybe in relation to a meeting or emails that I sent out. So if I click on messages here, we can now see that, hey, this is pulling in from a conversation that happened about 40 minutes ago. So in essence, even the conversation that's happening right now in this webinar is being indexed and pulled into here. So if I was to say, hey, I'm looking for specific verbiage, let me kind of keep updating my results until I find what I need to find. You also have the capability of adjusting the type. So in essence, if you say, hey, let me exclude Teams, let me look specifically in Outlook, I can go ahead and search that here, and I can see, hey, like here's the webinar feedback or anything else. So you can see here, this allows you to, again, in a centralized location, search more of Office 365 versus having to go into separate applications and search for content there. If you ever do need to, this is going to be directed more to the IT folks on this call. If you ever do wish to disable this feature, or if it has been disabled and you wish to re-enable this feature, you will need to go to the Office 365 admin portal. And to do so, you will click on the app launcher here and then go to admin. Once you are inside the admin portal, you will want to wait until this bar appears. If you do not see it here, we are looking for the settings option. So we're going to go ahead and expand that. And underneath of search and intelligence is what we're looking for. Once we're in the search and intelligence section of the admin portal, we will go to customizations. And again, as of right now, it's going to default to result types where we want to click on verticals. And so these will be all the verticals available to your organization across the board. So again, here we can see that messages is available to us. If I go ahead and click this disable button, it will now remove that option from our tenant for people to search via the message dropdown. If you wish to re-enable it, again, select the record, click the enable button, and then kind of deploy outwards. Also, just as another little caveat to that, messages are only what you have access to, so you don't need to worry about potentially searching other people's mailboxes, other people's conversations. This is only what you as an individual have access to in the sense of your emails and or your chat logs type of idea. So that can maybe put your minds at ease where, hey, people aren't going to be finding stuff they shouldn't be finding. This is applicable to the users themselves. So I know that was a lot of information very quickly, and I hope that you guys get some value out of it moving forward, and I assume Microsoft will continue to integrate this across the board. One more actually caveat I do wish to add, messages as of this moment in time is only accessible via the messages vertical. So if I was to go to all, I would not be able to search my messages or my Outlook via the all option. So you will have to go to messages specifically in this moment in time if you wish to search for those values. So with all that being said, Hayden, I'll pass it back on to you.
Perfect, Leona. Thank you so much. I can't, and this is a little, embarrassing, but I can't honestly count how many times I've personally remembered a document or a subject that I was talking about with another coworker, but I wasn't quite sure if we were discussing something that was in a meetings note or a Teams message or even referencing a file within SharePoint. So being able to aggregate all that into one simple place without of course, the security concern that other people are seeing that don't need to is such an amazing feature, and I'm glad to see it come into fruition. Thank you again, Leona, and to all of our presenters today. That was awesome. That does conclude the learning portion of today's webinar. I hope that we've been able to spark some new interests for functionality that you and your teams can explore. Please be on the lookout in your email for our next webinar, which will be on April the 10th. We look forward to learning with you again. Now, before we segue into our live Q&A section of the webinar, I do want to remind everyone that all the webinar notes, slides, and recordings will be in our learning portal for easy access for everything discussed today for our SharePoint support clients. If for some reason you don't have access or you'd like to gain access into the future to this learning portal, please reach out and after the webinar and we'll make sure you get access to that. Our learning portal, again, is where you and your team will not only get the materials from today's webinar, but any future webinar recordings and materials as well. All right. With that, we will now segue into the open live Q&A forum. If you don't plan on staying for the live Q&A, I just want to say thank you again for learning with us today. On screen, we are showing instructions on how to raise your hand and ask a question to one of our presenters. Your mics will be unmuted and questions will be taken in order of hand raised.
I've got a question. Steph actually posed a good question. Maybe Andrea just answered it. It was, what would the reason that IT would want to disable the feature Leona showed? And I was sitting here thinking, other than some kind of policy that's in place, I couldn't think of a good one. Andrea, maybe that's it. Anybody else have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, and Leona mentioned it there. I would think, yeah, if you had a different way you wanted people, if it was a preference on how you wanted users maybe to interact or find content or to use a certain tool instead, and you're trying to not encourage the adoption of a certain tool that you're not using or something like that. So it might be more of a preference, or if you're not using that tool.
Thank you. And just we'll stay around for a few more minutes. If anybody else does have any questions, again, thanks everybody for their attendance today and participation. Take a look for that email you'll get today or tomorrow. And if you've got some interest in future features or topics you'd like us to cover, we'll give you a Microsoft list form where you can input that information, and we'll thank you in advance for that.
Absolutely. Ray, all of the recordings will be on our learning site. If you don't have access to that, reach out to us after. We'll make sure you get what you need, okay?
I will send the recording to everybody that was registered today too, Ray.
All right, sounds good, Angelica. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rudy. All right. All righty. All right. It looks like maybe most of the questions have been asked and answered during the webinar, which we love to see. With that said, we'll go ahead and land the plane and see you guys in April the 10th. If we don't speak before then, it was good seeing you guys. Thank you.